it sounds like Wii Sports skiing, but it doesn't actually sound like Wii Sports.
Let's see. Okay, we should go live soon. You guys ready, both of you?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah.
All right. Wait, did we start the stream already? I think we did. Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. Anyways, hello everyone. Zalgus, are we on live right now? I pressed a different button than I'm used to, so I'm not sure if I'm live or not. Okay, we're live. Okay, good. Hey, John Rivera. Sorry for the glitch in my mind. So we are going to be discussing Valentine Snow Fight, survival game of love and struggle. Joining me today for now is Zalgus.
Hello.
And Milk.
Hello.
So Irby is supposed to join us in the stream, but he is going to be late. Luckily, he has been assigned for a part later, so we'll just be talking with us three for the beginning, and hopefully Irby can join us later. So let us jump right into this. I hope the sound is fine, by the way. So let us start off with the AR. This is going to be covered by me. And right, so this AR is equipable on Shiro, Ryota magic units, stress units, and blow units. It has a minor stat boost bonus, and it is maxable. It can give freeze resistance, as well as lets you bestow blessing to the unit directly in front of you at a 40% rate if you max it every even turn. So it's not amazing, honestly, but the art's nice. I'd say this artist is the same one that did the Z stuff, right? I think. Or is it the one that does the Shiro art? I can't really tell, but they both kind of... The Z's one? Yeah, I think it's a nice redemption art because there's the drawing of Duo and Shuichi was a bit scuffed. So it's nice that he kind of improved his male drawing. She kind of improved her male drawing this time, so it's kudos to her. But besides that, I wouldn't really recommend too much for this unit. There are some units that have blessing strengthening, such as Choji, although he already starts with blessing, so not really amazing. But yeah, put this equipped on someone who would be behind Choji or Gangstar Bertro, who also has blessing strengthening. You may also consider putting this on Gangstar Jurong, because he needs to move to bestow his blessing, and he also has blessing strengthening. But if you do this, then he technically doesn't need to move. You may also just want to equip this on any other defensive supporter in the back line. And lastly, you may also want to equip this on Fantasy Itamna, because he has freeze weakening, and if you equip this AR, then that will just not be an issue at all if freeze ever becomes an issue. That freeze weakening, by the way, would reduce his activation rate by 50%. So those are all my thoughts on this AR. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't know why the blessing is 40%. I hate when they do that. It's pretty shit for that, but at least it has freeze immunity, I guess.
You know the...
I have no... Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
Oh, do you want me to go?
Yeah,
well,
go.
I have no opinion on this AR, just because I'm pretty sure I'm never going to use it, because debuff immunity is not really that common, like, at all. Like, the most mileage we've gotten about of a debuff immunity is probably, like, fear immunity if you're running Shiro Dungeon, but people don't run Shiro Dungeon as much anymore, because they prefer Ikebukuro. And it's freeze, like, if you have to bring a freeze immunity AR, it's just like whatever. Yeah, it's probably like you're probably doing something wrong or like something inefficient.
Yeah,
I don't care about the buffing effect.
It's not great. Usually, if you do want a status resistance of some kind, it would be for some sort of damage weakening debuff, so that it could help you with farming or something. But if it's something like that amplifies damage on your side, you're probably going to do a tanking setup, and I don't know, as you just said, there's probably better setups than this at this point. So it's not great. And honestly, remember that Treasure Hunt CP AR? That one was pretty bad, but somehow that's still better than this one. Fucking blessing on arrival. But yeah, I would say that still has more mileage than whatever this AR is supposed to be. So moving on. Wait,
I think this one's slightly better just because it's to allies, even if it's like at a trash rate. Because, like as you said, it was like Exo Spurter and stuff. So yeah, I don't think you could put that on the treasure hunt CP AR on him, even though he's technically a warmonger. But yeah.
Does that not? Oh yeah, I don't think that's a warmonger's AR, right? It's just for what's called Hombre
Yeah, it's
right?
just for like low and or something. Low. I don't know.
Yeah, they knew. There's no way they wouldn't know about that. I mean, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. But yeah, there's not much to talk about this AR. Let's just move on. I'll go ahead and read the comments now. Hey everyone, John Rivera, Audrey Rival, Jackie Chung, Prisma, and Edwin, and Xenu, and everyone. I sometimes like a position immunity. I don't know what quest that would be relevant in, but maybe it's chapter 13.
Maybe like Aoyama.
Maybe.
Oh, it could be chapter 13 because
something.
like Kata and like.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. The invaders are full of possessors, so I wouldn't be surprised if it would be useful. But yeah, good luck to the rest of you for getting the rest of the copies for this AR. Even though it's not essential, you only really need 10 copies for this AR. You can get the rest, the last 10 during the reprint, so not really urgent. Let's move on to the first unit. So we'll now be talking about Girimekhala. This unit is going to be covered by me again. So this unit is an oppression adept supporter. What this means is he uses oppression in various ways to just overall improve the usefulness of his entire team. So he is an actual oppressor himself. He can oppress when he attacks units before damage is done or damage calculation is done at an 80% rate. He can also oppress all enemies at turn start at 20%, which is pretty interesting. And he is able to oppress on charge as well. And thankfully, he is also able to build this charge very quickly, so that's not going to be an irrelevant factor for him to get his oppression support up. In addition to this, he is a moderate damage dealer and damage amplifier. He has Vigor to self on phase start at a 9% rate, or 80% rate, actually. 80% for a 3-star, and should be 90% for his 4-star. Yeah, I don't know why I had that.
I think it's 90 for 4-star.
Yeah, that's correct. And he also bestows crit to allies that are adjacent on miss at an 80% rate, which is quite nice. Of course, we'll talk about why that's not necessarily accessible, but it's nice to have either way. And he has some oppression-dependent damage as well. He has 1.5 times advantage against oppression, and he also bestows that same amount of advantage to his allies all around him every time he is buffed at a 90% rate. So that's a bit weird that he would be bestowing that every single time he's buffed. I'm not sure if Life Wonders or the team knew that it would pretty much be giving a status that couldn't stack multiple times, but you'll only get that single 1.5 times multiplier once. And you'll be seeing that effect going off a lot, unfortunately. And the damage potential for this unit it's a pretty good, I'd say, for someone that is self-sufficient as a 4-star. It's with his weapon change magic, which we'll get to later, and Vigor and Oppression with advantage, and his Infernal type advantage. He will be dealing around 6.6k damage per square, which in comparison is better than Takamaru 3 and better than Bigfoot actually. So it's not bad. Just give him one more buff and he'll become an actual sufficiently strong column clear. And besides this, he's also a tank and damage mitigator. So with his face start Vigor, or any Vigor, he also takes 0.6 times damage, and this is a permanent buff on arrival. It is guaranteed. And he also has Guts on arrival, which is nice, so that he can't just get one shot. And he also resists weakness, so that will prevent any more damage from being taken through that debuff. And he also has a bit of healing. Whenever he is attacking, there's a 70% chance that he will heal for 400 HP. And on charge, supposedly this is a pretty good healing charge. I don't know if that's true or not, but in a pretty large range at a 2 square diamond radius, he will bestow himself as well as allies in that range 300 HP. And because he is, again, a CP builder, it's pretty decent to rely on that. Maybe not every turn, but maybe every 3 turns or some shit. I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never used Girimekhala. So, he also has some oppression-dependent tanking and damage mitigation, because with oppression, all enemies on the board on phase start will deal only 0.75 times their damage. And this is an ear removal debuff that will last for 3 turns. Besides these factors, again, he is a CP builder. I've mentioned this a few times, but the way he builds CP is he steals 8 CP for every unit he hits at an 8% rate, and he also bestows 12 CP to himself every time he misses at a 9% rate. So, back to that weapon change I mentioned, even though he is below range, in fact you'll mostly likely be using him as a magic range unit for the most, because he has a weapon change to magic for a regular buff for 1 turn on turn start to himself, and he applies this for the first 3 turns of every phase. So because of this, he ends up being an early moderate damage dealer and damage amplifier, but later on he has access to strong damage amplifier role of bestowing crit to allies adjacent, or at least it'll be easy for him to do that. So yeah, that's my description of him. As for recommendations, I'd say maybe you want to bring some more oppressors with him, so damage dealers such as Kimukamu, who bestows oppression on arrival. There's also Fashionista Suzuka whenever she moves, Gulen Brasi, which is kind of like a not guaranteed oppression, but still board wide on phase start. Tajikaro and Chernobog is a regular rare form. And there's also some ARs that bestow oppression as well, such as the Oniwaka Ibaraki one or the Astarte Asterius one. And you may also consider bringing units and ARs that amplify that oppression advantage, whether it's for him or the allies he gives that advantage to. So there's Beach as follows, and then there is the regular 4-star of Melusine, Yakusha, Yoritomo, Asterius, his regular rare form, and Kirito. And for ARs that bestow oppression advantage, there's again the Oniwaka Ibaraki one and the Astarte Asterius one. They both actually give oppression advantage to. And there's also the Sasako Hawk one AR. These aren't necessarily equipable on him, but you can bring them on the allies he will be going with, since they will also get oppression advantage. So those are all my thoughts on this pretty cute unit, I would say so myself. I'm a big fan of his voice acting too. So what do you guys think?
So I think he's pretty good. In the farming, due to this way he synergizes with like some of the other units, his damage is actually pretty okay, as you've said before. In the first vertical, the one with Yoritomo's buffing him with the magic range weakness thing. And the second one, you get weakness from Shinya if you have him, or if you're using Festival Tez as well, which I am, then he also gets weakness there. So yeah, he's all around pretty decent. I've never, even after like using him, I've never gotten like the crit to go off, because it's kind of like weird, because generally like you want to run like people who wants to be a leader in the leader slot. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, people with when attacking effects, or just like stuff in terms of like team ordering, so that Giri usually gets pushed down to like slot 2 or 3. So it's kind of weird to have this crit effect, because he's kind of not in the position to do so. But I wouldn't put it past people to like be able to do something with it, but I think waiting until turn 4 is just whatever. So I don't particularly care for that. The last thing that I think about him is that he's kind of like the source, due to like the oppression advantage, and that turn start like 20% oppression of like your units randomly doing more damage than expected on the board, just because he gets that off, and then suddenly your units just like seem to be doing more damage than expected. And he's pretty much the reason for that, because of that random 30%, 20% stuff. Yeah, so that's all I have to say.
All right. What do you think, August?
You don't want to say hello or no?
Hello?
Irby.
Wait, is Irby
Hi,
here?
Irby.
Did he just... Hey, Irby. Just teleported here right as finished.
Actually, he teleported here in the middle of no, but whatever.
So did you catch all of that, Irby? Did you want to add on to anything that Milk just said?
Honestly, I didn't catch anything other than the 20% depression, and I don't really care that much about this unit, to be honest. So, yeah, I haven't, I wasn't really able to catch the whole discussing about this unit. So, I don't know what you guys talked about, but yeah, I'm not really that impressed about this unit, and I think it's okay. It's just an okay unit. It's not bad, but it's just okay. But yeah, I didn't have any notes for this.
That's fine. Alright, what do you think, Salkus?
I appreciate having a magic attacker who can deal okay damage that isn't Takemaru. Girimekhala does like around 6k damage, assuming he hits his oppression, which isn't that great, but the magic attackers are kind of slim pickings besides 5 stars, so if for some reason you want a low-cost magic attacker, Girimekhala can fill in, I guess. I'm sneezing. Oh dear. But yeah, his damage is alright, but it's not amazing. It's enough to be usable, at least, I would say.
Any insights on his 3-star, since you're usually the 3-star guy?
That's pretty much it. It's just that he is one of the few magic units who can actually do damage, or a reasonable amount. The only other choice would be, what's-his-face, Takemaru, who I've used God knows how many times. Besides that, his kit is mostly intact, since really you're probably just using Girimekhala for his magic range and his oppression range, which his when attacking oppression is a bit lower rate, but it's still usable, I would say. Or, you know, if you want to reroll, there's that too. But yeah, I really doubt people will make use of his on-miss kit, so the on-miss crit won't be missed. Although, that would have been nice to play around with. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be perfectly usable as a 3-star. I mean, he doesn't even lose that much attack. He loses about 400 on his attack stat, but I think that's about it. So, yeah, he works fine as his 3-star.
Alright. Yeah, honestly, I wish he was a bit better, but, you know, his damage is alright compared to other 4-star damage dealers and even 3-star ones. We don't have too many, it's just a huge jump between, like, what's called Balor and the next strongest, which is probably going to be Beachhouse and Bari, and even then he needs to move to even get close to that. So the fact that Girimekhala doesn't need to move or anything like that and have some decent damage as well, just needs one extra buff to really function, it's a good choice, I'd say. A decent choice, maybe. But like Irby, I would say he's also not really bringing anything amazingly new besides just being another Takemaru. So, yeah, if that's it, then I will just go ahead and read the comments. Let's see. Yeah, the only hot one first. I need him. Man, I do wish I got him. I don't really care about his kit, which is why I'm not pulling harder for him. But I did spend 5 tickets exclusively just because I did like Girimekala's voice acting as well as his art. I'm a big fan of elephants and a lot of these other unusual species. Just, you know, I don't talk about them because, again, they're unusual to come up in topics as well. You didn't get him. Yeah, sucks. Does conceal his weapon change immediately for missing even though he is immune. Oh, that's interesting. bizarre, but I don't know. I guess it's really hard to upkeep all these weapon change immunity statuses, which I'm not surprised, but they probably need a better systematized way rather than preparing the exact same enormous ass list of every single weapon change status there is. Best big elfin boy. He's like the only big elfin boy. Alright, well, we'll move on now. So, we are now going to be talking about Tanetomo and their variant for this event. So, this will be covered by Cosmo. You are free to continue when you are ready.
Okay, we're talking about Tanetomo.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Tanetomo is kind of a weird unit because I think when his kit came out, he was probably like one of the most underwhelming kits like we've seen in a while. But in terms of like the farming, I think he's actually kind of decent. So let me try to sort of explain why. So first of all, his kit has this sort of bizarre when attacking total turns of 135, so on the odd turns of applying attack up to himself and only the ally in front of himself at a 70% rate. So that rate's kind of sucky and it's really bizarre. And he can also give combo to allies in the slash range in front of him, but it's at a 50% rate, so it's also really rare. And this is probably the main reason why everybody's calling him a mobster if you aren't aware, because mobsters apply combo and people have been using those mobs for it. For the other part of his kit, you can move him to give combo to himself at a 90% rate. He has this after moving obstruct. It's like 3 squares away, which is stupid. That's like worse than the Festival Furufumi whatever thing.
No, don't remind me of that.
And he also has this move phase end of like charging the slash of plus 10 CP to the slash range in front of him. That effect's just okay, but in combination with the CP charge with combo, you can get some stuff off of it. And you also have this interesting effect of applying this before being hit status of decreasing 1.5k HP to the enemy and the enemy's 1 square around. To the enemies that are like this like row in front of this row, like 3 squares in front of him, I would say. This is one of the interesting effects, and I'll get into that later. He has some status immunities of break and paralysis. That's okay, because they're kind of like dangerous in terms of movement restriction and kind of dangerous overall. He does some CP drain. That's okay. And he also has the status of non-combo strengthening, which triples his attack when he doesn't have combo, but it also actually still buffs his attack when he does when he doesn't have combo, he gets triple attack, but when he does have combo, it only does 1.5, so he still gets a damage boost overall, like whether he has combo or not. And with combo itself already has a 1.2 multiplier, so that's going to stack a bit. And he has this move phase end fear that's also at a 50% rate, so that's kind of frustrating. So the things I wanted to say about this unit is that despite his kit overall being like really like small and overall like very underwhelming in terms of its rates and stuff, he's actually kind of decent in damage, and it's mostly because of this non-combo strengthening. For a fire snipe unit, if you can get the attack up and the non-combo strengthening, he does 7.8k damage per square for this as a snipe unit. So in comparison to Festival Tez, who has Berserk Plus and weakness, Festival Tez does 6.3k damage, so Tanetomo actually can deal quite a bit of damage for a fire snipe unit, and I think it's mainly because of non-combo strengthening and his somewhat high attack stat of 4.6k-ish, 5k, yeah. So it was actually kind of surprising bringing him into farming, and he does kind of do like some damage by himself. Of course, this lowers quite a bit to 4.7k with combo. So you have to somewhat trade like reliability due to combo for his like proc rates, for his one attacking stuff, or you can just pursue like a little bit more damage for Tanetomo if you don't decide to move him. Okay, cool. So regarding the combo, the positive side of this combo is that because it's in a slash range, you can basically give combo to 3 units pretty easily without having to move Tanetomo, if you're lucky enough. And this is good because this formation is pretty good for vertical clears or vertical farming, as we see already. And combo in itself is a pretty strong status that's very rarely bestowed. It's good because you can do stuff like CP charge. As we talked about before, Giri had this CP steal, and this kind of like synergizes with Giri in a way. You can also fish for like more when attacking effects, and this comes into play with this flat damage status that I talked about before. This flat damage status, which decreases 1.5k HP, due to Tanetomo's combo, and if you get combo to like the people in front of him, you can actually get a lot of hits off and a lot of flat damage due to that 1 square wave range. So for example, if you have Tanetomo and let's say 3 magic units in front of him, you can basically get 21k flat damage to like like around 21k flat damage to like the 3x3 grid itself. It's slightly stronger in the middle column of 24k, but if you get all your hits, like if you have like that row of enemies present and he applies that 1.5k flat damage status to them, you can get like 21k flat damage to the grid, all in one turn. So that was kind of surprising when I tested it. It's really slow though, so that's a problem. So yeah, that's probably like one of the more interesting things about this kit is this flat damage, in my opinion. The last part about this kit is the CS, which gives Omni movement to himself and Brawn to himself. I've never seen his CS pop off because he doesn't have any CP gen to himself. He has combo, but I've not really seen his charge skill. Actually, I have seen it once. It has this Gatling gun effect. But yeah, you won't really use the CS, so that's kind of too bad. So overall, I would say that he synergizes the best with magic units because of this like flat damage thing. If you wanted to go that way, so stuff like Ban Typhon, Valentine Yoritomo is kind of obvious. Valentine Belor, Sanakumara, maybe even Turing, because you want to roll for like extra chances for Logic Bomb. You can have stuff like Arachne and Licho if you want to fish for sort of like status debuffing and CP charging. And yeah, I was also pairing him with Ahab due to Ahab's one attacking healing. So people who want combo in general are pretty good with him. And yeah, for AR recommendations, I would get that Arc AR because he desperately needs better raids. And if you don't have it, then I guess you could just run like Kool-Aid so that you buff the team with Glint at the very least. So yeah, that's what I had to say about him. Strange unit, but he's kind of like a little more stronger than you expect.
You see, I guess reading the kit doesn't tell you the full story. You really need to see the damage add up and their own personal damage to get a good idea of it. But what do you guys think, Urbi and Zelgus?
I think it's okay. I mean, we've been due to another unit that bestowed combo for a very long time, and I think Tanetomo is a pretty decent combo bestower. I mean, he's like one of the only ones that can do it without needing to move, and in a way that is refreshable. Outside Mobster, it's only him really.
Yeah, pretty much just Mobster.
So I think it's pretty nice, and it's also well, I guess there's Setsuwa no Niyawaki, but he doesn't count. But yeah, it's nice that he can do it, and the formation is actually, I would say, a lot better than Mobster. So I can see it being really memey with flat damage, as Milk said.
Oh yeah, for the flat damage, I went into that Smoky God Refrain quest, and if you use him, it's ridiculous how long it takes. It's like worse than the after buff stuff I was using with Jeipaku. Because it like takes forever for every hit.
Yeah, I'm not surprised since they can give themselves and everyone else combo, and then it also has those effects going off.
Well, it's mainly because the flat damage is one square around, so you have to wait for everybody to get everything. So yeah. But also that quest is bad in itself. But yeah. So if you have him, I would try that Smoky God Refrain quest to see how much flat damage you can stack, because it's ridiculous.
Okay, might try that out later. What do you think, Salgus?
When the initial kits released, or like half kits for the teaser or whatever announcement, I think it was funny that a few people, mostly me, thought that Tanetomo was going to be a lot better. Just based on the fact that he gave, we knew he would give combo to allies.
Yeah.
And then, so it was Erita who said something like in before 70% rate, and it ended up being so much worse than that, 50% rate. I don't know why Tanetomo's rates are so mediocre to bad, but that really kind of sucks a lot of the fun out of it for me. I mean, Tanetomo's snipe, so, you know, at least he gets lots of chances to roll for it, but still, 50% is pretty trash.
I think for when attacking rate that only needs to trigger once, it's decent, I would say. If he's going to hit 3 targets, he's extremely likely to bestow combo. So,
True.
I wasn't too bothered by it.
It won't help though if
is
it's like
pretty good.
the center column has only one enemy or even 0 enemies, which sometimes happens. That'll just like be the worst possible scenario for Tanetomo.
Yeah, that's the worst scenario. Most of the time, there's going to be at least 2 enemies.
Oh,
so
So yeah, he's fine. He, you know, I always think it's annoying how few combo bestowers we actually have in the game. So having someone else who can do it is nice, even if I think his rates are kind of poop. But yeah, it combo bot. There you go.
All right. Were you saying something, Milk?
yeah, like Mobster's combo rate is 70%, so I was kind of expecting that, but then we got this trash 50%. In practice, actually, though, he's been pretty consistent, and sometimes you don't actually want this combo to pop off because of like farming.
You're not gonna be farming with Tanetomo. At least outside of this quest, no.
Yeah, I've been actually just using him while avoiding the combo entirely by having him in the front for the event farming. So
that makes sense.
Because his damage, because as I said before, his damage is actually kind of high without combo. So yeah.
It is unfortunate how there's just so many skill effects here that are not even 90%. So it's like the attack up is 70%, the combo is 50%, the obstruct is 80%, whatever. And the fear is 50%. I don't really understand these rates at this point anymore. Do they really expect us to be bringing like a glint and prayer bot every single game or something? It's very bizarre.
I think it's supposed to be like some sort of like you know, like you prioritize like moving Tanetomo to get better rates due to giving him combo, or you pursue more damage overall. But yeah, it's like some sort of risk reward, I think.
I suppose we've been spoiled with just
50% is
guaranteeing
still
everything.
stupid.
Having like really high rates from like multiple rolls at 50% it's okay, I guess.
I think 50% is still stupid though. Like, why does he have a worse rate than mobsters? But yeah.
Because you're doing it to more
Monsters,
people,
like, too strong.
and also you get to roll twice because
Yeah.
the Tanetomo gets combo themselves. I don't know. Presuming Tanetomo doesn't end up killing the enemy.
They tried too hard to not power creep mobsters. They tried to keep it at the same power level.
Let's just hope for a Tanetomo date quest where they get an Evo. Anyway, my thoughts on this is you're not going to be grinding with this unit outside of this quest, but you'll still want it for those tall maps just so that, as Milk said, you can get those kind of effects that can stack on top of each other. You did mention Ahab for his healing, but he's also quite strong at reducing HP too, like 3,000 HP reduction. I can't remember off the top of my head of anyone who can bestow Conflagration and Burn at the same time without having to move, so that might be a consideration if you do find a unit, so that you can further amplify the damage output, your flat damage output you're doing. There's also some other units that have post-strike damage amps, like Kriznik and his after-attacking weakness that he bestows to his allies. There's also Ark with their after-attacking Stigma, and Korpker with his after-attacking Freeze, and Robinson with his after-attacking weakness. And you may also want to remove multiple buffs at the same time. So you may want to bring Kriznik again, since he can bestow that sort of buff steal effect to his allies. And also, you know, Kriznik always felt like a unit who should have combo bestowal to allies because of how he works, but never did. So I guess Tanetomo can act as a band-aid to that. You may also want to pair him up with the Shinyu's current variant, because he also bestows to all enemies that remove buffs thing every time they're hit. There's also Turing for the buff removal from Logic Bomb, and Gangstar Bertro, apparently he has buff removal too, and regular Fushi apparently has buff removal if you remember anything outside of his 4 times multiplier thing. Nightmare Kunioshi and Krampus, his Jiangshi variant, and Azazel. Besides that, you can also heal more with Ahab, as Milk mentioned, but also Fushi, his Gangstar variant, and Desert Journey Hanman, and regular or Crispus Ryota, and regular Choji, regular Z's, and Simorg. And for CP bestowers, I mean, Arachne's kind of crazy by themselves with how much CP they give. If you want to make that even more ridiculous, then yeah, go for regular Arachne. And you may also consider bringing Bigfoot or Agio for that increased amount of CP every time they attack. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on Tanetomo. And if that's it, then you are free to read out the comments, Milk.
Okay. I was kind of surprised that you suggested Robinson out of the blue.
I mean,
Like, was that 4-star?
his regular, I think. Okay. I mean, I guess his his variant already has combo, doesn't it? I can't remember.
Yes,
I think it might be at a.
it's only 50%, I think.
It says 60%, but yeah.
Robinson,
yeah,
his regular thing always had some weakness shit, just like Musashi, I think. But
so I was just extremely surprised that you suggested Robinson.
I mean, he's a column clear technically. It's just that he could never take advantage of his own weakness, which is dumb.
Except he can't clear his column.
Whatever. It's just throwing spitballing here.
It's like worse than Xmas Choji, please.
Okay, fine. Look, it's just like, I remember this kit. I'm gonna use that knowledge, alright? I'm just gonna pretend he doesn't exist.
Okay. But I think the other thing that I was sidetracked by was you said the burn and conflagration thing.
Yeah.
I think that was Tanetomo's variant, so I went to check that.
Yeah. Oh, his variant. He does both without moving? Okay.
The chapter 13 one.
I honestly forgot about saying besides his 60% ardor. For some reason, everything else just fades in my mind besides that really shitty ardor rate.
I think it was like I think one of them was like in move phase end, maybe the burn or something, but the other was a when attacking.
Yeah,
like,
so Tanetomo would work well with the other Hakenchi. I already forgot his name.
The only problem was that it was the only problem was that it was like restricted to that shot range. Okay, let me see where we were. I think it's I don't like him very much. I like his art. It's really cute. The art looks super fun and also dog butt. Oh, that Yasuyori confirmation that the peony mark was black or something. Yeah. Housamo was not meant for many skill triggers. It creeped up. Poor Volos. You do have to move him to get combo, and he doesn't have any movement expansion outside of his CS, which he's not reaching without assistance, which hurts his usefulness too much. So much. I disagree because you don't really need movement expansion because the places where you're ideally be using him would be like the vertical. So I guess that's true if you were like trying to use him for wide, or the big maps, but I think he's just kind of like attuned for vertical. So I guess maybe you're right if you're like trying to force him into wide himself, but I just see him more as like specializing in vertical. Okay, they expect us to have Glint's concentration, but don't release a lot of unit that give those to other unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know about Glint's and concentration other than like Bertro, but
Itzamna.
yeah, maybe. Oh, Itzamna does exist, but you have to move.
There is duo, obviously.
He doesn't have.
Oh my god.
Does he have glint? I think
He does.
Oh yeah, he
Yes,
just does both, I guess.
he does.
Yeah,
Yes,
that was
both.
one of the big things about him was that he was like
very
he
shaky
does both.
rates with that after attacking.
But then Bertro, Givo came in and they probably messed up and is giving it to Bertro 3-star. So
They definitely did. They wrote in Nizos for 4-star, but it just happened to be for 3-star as well. So they retconned it. They're like, no, we always meant to do that.
Hey, I'm not
Oh.
complaining.
Oh, ill. Yeah, he has Xmas Takimaru's issue of movement expansion on CS and no way to get it quickly despite being over. Why do that? The thing is that like the thing is that Xmas Takimaru's problem isn't really the movement expansion on CS.
So that he's thrust
And
and has to move to get any decent damage.
yeah, and Tanetomo isn't really like a mover in the sense that you can use him like perfectly fine without having to move. In the sense that his damage is already kind of good. The problem is that, and also Tanetomo only has to move really like once every 2 turns. Well, does he? Oh, if you want to fish for a combo for himself. So he's kind of like in this sort of mixed state. Yeah, but yeah, I can kind of see what you mean in the sense that his CS is basically just non-existent because you can almost never get it up. Okay. Oh, it's Femboy. Yo. Xmas Takimaru at least starts with it though.
Yeah. I don't understand why they lock it behind the charge. It's so pointless.
Oh, I see. That's what you mean. Yeah, I don't really get that either then. It's okay, just brute force his rates like you have to brute force reloads this event. Yeah. The problem is that he can't reach his optimal position even in tall maps on turn 1 without using like Night Glow's Kuragane to help. Yeah, I've seen that. It's not that bad really. Like if you wanted to like get that get the flat damage off, then
Just get that flat damage off of
Just having
the first 2 columns on the left, and forget the right side.
Yeah, it's actually not. Yeah, it's actually not that bad. Like you might say that like sarcastically, but it's actually still not that bad. Also like for farming, you don't really want the combo to. You really don't want that flat damage effect to pop off anyways. So yeah. Okay, cool. That's all the comments.
All right, thank you for covering that. We will now be covering the next topic you'll be doing, which is going to be Shinya. So you can just continue.
Oh my god, I'm still talking.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to Shinya. I don't have a lot to say about Shinya actually, because Shinya is just kind of a weird mix of everything. So I'll just read this kit and just kind of try to separate what he does into like separate blocks afterwards. So the first thing he does is apply this charm strengthening to your allies when he appears. And this basically increases your team's defense when they're charmed. If you're like a new player and you get charmed, I guess this might be helpful. So that you don't like die immediately, but it's a whatever effect because if you're like good, you don't get charmed in the first place. So yeah. So that's just kind of like a whatever effect. He has a guaranteed phase start pull of pulling enemies in one square. All the enemies on the board. So that's kind of a neat effect for stuff like farming. He has 2 after being hit effects, which apply burn and conflagration. The burn is at a higher rate of 90%, but conflagration is only at 60%. But yeah, this effect exists. His second skill gives a chance of removing a buff to enemies before being hit. So he gives this skill after attacking, an 80% rate, and the skill says that the enemies before being hit have a chance of removing buffs from themselves at a 70% rate. So it's kind of a lot to take in, but that's basically allows Shinya and allies to fish for buff removal after Shinya attacks the first time. Okay, he has this move phase end remove debuff to the allies, like 1 square around him at a 60% rate. So a very mediocre rate again, but remove debuff is kind of good. He has charm advantage, but he doesn't apply charm until his CS. He has when attacking blessing to the enemies at a 90% rate. He has when attacking protection to himself and allies directly adjacent at like a 60% rate. So again, mediocre. And now the good part about this kit is that he applies when attacking weakness to hit enemies and the enemies directly adjacent to those hit, but it's only at an 80% rate. He gets a 1.5x advantage to enemies with blessing, and he has this possession status resistance, which is probably some lore thing about possession. His CS applies charm and paralysis to the hit enemies and the ones horizontally adjacent, I believe. I've never seen the CS pop off because he doesn't have CP gen himself, so good luck getting that. But it's a pretty strong effect, I imagine, if you get it off. Okay, so overall, what's happening in this kit? His main role is basically an offensive buffer due to this really wide weakness range, I would say. Like, because you're applying weakness to the hit enemies and the ones like directly adjacent to them, you can get a fairly wide weakness spread. The problem is that this is pretty much all he does in terms of like damage amplification or like farming. The other use for farming is this pull. So when you run him in like the event farming quest, it's actually pretty decent due to this pull and weakness. And some people might see him doing like pretty good damage, like around like 11.7k. The reason though for this is that if you're using Jacob is applying buff reversal, and buff reversal is actually buffing Shinya's damage to get to those numbers of 11.7k. So without Jacob's buff reversal, he's actually doing like 4.7k damage per square, which is like worse than Giri, but I guess it might be like okay-ish since people are using Xmas Choji of all people. So yeah. But so yeah, as a farm unit, he's way too inconsistent to use in my opinion because of all those like sub 90 even rates. But if you're using him like offensively, it would be for this weakness and maybe getting buff reversal off if you're using Jacob. So yeah, he's meant to synergize with Jacob basically. Okay. His other major thing is arguably this before being hit, remove buff to the enemies. The problem is that, as I said before, in the sense that he's meant to synergize with Jacob, this is the weird part. He's meant to like trigger buff reversal, but he also removes buffs to the hit enemies.
Alright.
So I was thinking about this and I was like, is this actually going to like be bad in like practice? In practice, I don't actually really see it as too much of a detriment, but I think it's kind of silly. And the reason why is that if you bring him in stuff like challenge quests, enemies very likely have their own source of buffs, and this buff removal is probably going to like not remove all of their buffs, so that it won't be like too much of a problem. But yeah, it's very strange the fact that you have somebody who's supposed to be doing buff removal and like giving blessing to enemies. At the very least you get the blessing off, but it's sort of stupid. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, because Shinya always applies when attacking blessing, he won't see that problem, but your other allies will potentially. I don't really know. It's such a strange interaction to have in the first place. And yeah. So so backing up. So yeah, that's basically it. Like, he's a pretty good, like, well, I wouldn't say pretty good, but he's certainly a unit that's more tailored to challenge quests, I think, because he has like this multitude of roles, but they aren't very focused in one direction. The reason why I say challenge quests in particular is because that remove debuff to move phase end, even if it's at some trash 60% rate, and also the when attacking protection, are more useful in the context of like longer quests such as those, in combination with his weakness spread. The problem though is, again, all of his rates being trash, and the funny thing is that despite all the stuff that I've said, none of them are healing. So even if you try to go for a more like defensive long game, Shinya doesn't actually heal, so you actually have to go find somebody else to do that role for him. But
just
yeah, overall,
steal blessing from the enemy.
Oh my god. I guess steal as well. But yeah, he's overall pretty weird. I would pair him with buff reversal users like Jacob and Summer Tinos. I'd also pair him with Summer Oz, not to use on Shinya himself, but just so that other people can take advantage of the weakness advantage that Summer Oz has. But yeah, and he's just kind of like a unit that you just pop in and he tries to help with weakness and protection. I don't think he has like too many amazing synergies outside of buff reversal. But yeah, that's my thoughts on him.
Thank you for that, Milk. Any other thoughts on this, Salgas Irby?
Okay.
If you want to say something, you can just say it, but
I can't tell. I can't tell if my internet keeps cutting out, so I keep stopping, or everyone else on my end keeps stopping. So
yeah,
I can't
you're
tell
on right
if
now.
I'm, like, missing parts.
Yes.
But yeah, anyway, I was gonna say, Shinya, like, Milk was saying about the remove buff and the blessing part that, you know, it feels at odds with each other. I feel like there's a lot of units in this banner where they have parts of the kit that don't seem to make sense with each other. Like Tanetomo's movement expansion, when he would really rather have it on turn 1. Or Shinya here, he's removing the buffs that he implies, so he's going to be removing the blessing so that he can't take advantage of it, and then it's worse for what's-his-face, Jacob, which I'll mention that later. And Jacob is probably the worst offender of this, but I'll get onto that later. But I'm not really a fan of this kit. It definitely feels kind of... It's okay, like, you know, weakness spread and removing buffs is cool, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem very... Like, it doesn't seem particularly cohesive. It has a lot of these parts just kind of sticking out that do whatever, like the charm strengthening thing. Like, it's kind of dumb, and then for some reason a bunch of burn and conflagration. Like, I don't know what that's there for, or why Shinya should be getting hit. It's very strange.
I think it's just sad that the farming quest is made a lot harder if you don't have Shinya 2-3 turn. Because
really
especially if you have your own Jacob that you're probably going to want to use. Having 2 Jacobs can be a little bit tough. So yeah, they really want you to get Shinya for this quest.
Is the pull is really that strong? Wow.
Yeah. It basically makes everyone be in thrust range in these quests, so yeah.
I'd say that's a nice proof of concept that the pull is actually pretty useful for even grinding. The only other guaranteed pulling it we have at this point is Behemoth after his Evo, and he is not really going to be helping outside of that pull because he doesn't really have anything else to help with tall maps. He needs to get hit or some shit like that to do anything else. So yeah, Shinya just feels like a better Behemoth in terms of tall map functionality, with also applying that weakness effect, and it maybe even having a clutch remove buff go off every now and then. I do think some parts of this kit is weird, like the whole charm resistance thing, but it's better if you just pretend that doesn't exist. Or the charm, what's called advantage, or charm strengthening? Yeah, charm strengthening, I guess that's what it would be called. And
I wouldn't say it's actually better than Behemoth. I mean, Behemoth's pull is still better, I think, if I recall correctly with the skill evolution.
Yeah, it's 2 squares, right?
It's 2 squares in,
and
but
also...
my point I was about to make was that you only need like a 1 square pull for these 12 maps to just you know, make the quest clearable with shot and or thrust units, and if you're always playing units in, then you might actually have a decent reason to substitute one of your usual calm clears with a thrust unit that, you know, is not normally used, like Jacob, for example, or variant Jacob.
At least the quest is not horizontal this time, like Christmas Sakimara.
I mean, the irony is a horizontal quest probably would have been nice to have with one of the units that we have this batch, which we'll get to later, but it's hinted at in the title of the stream too. Interestingly, I think Shinya would be pretty strong with Eita because of his complete buff removal to complement that, as well as his weakness advantage. So they're a pretty good pair. And also, of course, Shinya pairing with his pull to bring Eita in range to the enemies. The Eita meta will happen Monday. Anyway, that's all my thoughts. Well, if that's it, then go ahead and read the comments for the last time. Milk.
Yeah, so Shinya's half-assed rules altogether. Maybe you can get something out of it, but he's just kind of a weird kid. Shinya is really cute. It's a shame the Onsen skin wasn't ready in time. Yeah, Kuro Nezumi Inu said that he was late. So, it's coming later, but it seems to be pretty good when it comes. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting Shinya in this event, and I really like him too, so it's extra sad. I like Shinya actually a lot, actually quite a bit too. So hopefully we get into the Shinya lore that they've set up. Like every time he's mentioned, I'm so surprised. Bunch of pensive emojis. The lore thing is that Shinya is an invader. Yeah, it's kind of that. Possession immunities. The reason why I say it's a lore thing is that possession immunity specifically is kind of a weird thing with like the whole lore thing about you can't be possessed twice, and like Volk and Wolf and like Babe Bunyan are kind of like that. So that's why you see them in their kits or something.
Oh,
it feels like Shinya is trying to be a
that just reminds me of something they only talked about earlier in like beginning stories, where rules of similar powers can't like work with each other. Like if you remember, you know,
I think
Horikami couldn't freeze attack Chernobog's freeze thing, so I guess it's kind of like that for possession too.
Yeah, so yeah, like it's kind of clear that the possession is kind of related to like Shinya being somewhat related to the invaders, but I don't really see exactly why just yet. Like Shinya's kind of like brainwashing as well with his love power, but whatever. It feels like Shinya is trying to be a general purpose unit, but in a way where there's no reason to bring him over a specialist unit who does whatever you want Shinya to do. Yeah, he's kind of a mix of both. Like they kind of grab some sort of debuff removal from Jamboree Aizen, get some protection here and there. I'm not even thinking about the burden configuration. You get the weakness and buff removal. It's just whatever. There's just so much. I promised myself I wouldn't roll for him when I got Yoritomo so quickly, but I kind of caved and did 20 more tickets and 10 roll. Didn't get him. And I'm just going to count my blessings. I got my target 5, which I feel bad about because I like him, but he seems really underwhelming. Cute art at least. Yeah, well, I'd say he's underwhelming, but in this farming, he's actually pretty good, just due to Jacob. But
don't worry, I'm sure you'll cave once his onsen arc releases.
Oh boy. Alright. Blonde boy synergy. Oh yeah, they're both blondes. That's kind of surprising. I don't think there's that many blonde people in this game. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I kind of like this Shinya. He's at the very least usable and could fit in teams for one use or another. Yeah, he's usable. It's just that like his role isn't very specialized. Like I'm sure you can get him like to pop off in a high difficulty quest, but his like skills are just kind of like a mishmash. The king finally got a variant. Hello, Zoe.
I do like the perspective you bring about him being good for high difficulty quests, English. Because, you know, I'm just so used to like super high rates that are meant for like con clearing or board wiping nowadays. So it's a nice refreshing perspective away from the whole grind mentality. You got one more.
Well, it's just that I don't particularly like the whole like calm clear stuff at all. Well, mainly because chapter 13 isn't even fucking vertical in the first place. So
Akiba and Dragons really was an excellent calm clear banner, but it was like pretty milquetoast otherwise.
Yeah. So I see like stuff like this stupid like charmed 0.3x thing to be more for like, you know, like new people who get charmed and they're like
who are doing the Christmas quests or some shit like that.
Well, just like challenge quests in general, but yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. That's what I mean. Like Shinya is like helpful for those like sort of newer players since you can do a mix of everything.
Yeah, I can see it. Protection.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that, Ara. I'm trying to stay strong. That was John Rivera.
Yeah, with regards to the whole Valentine skin. Don't worry, it's gonna be the hottest skin you'll see. You're gonna shell out at least $100. Moving on. So you can finally take a break. Well, congrats. We will now be talking about Yoritomo. So thankfully, Irby is here now, so you can take the lead from here. Go ahead.
But this is probably, I would say, one of the better units on this banner. Even though that's not saying much, to be honest. So Yoritomo has ditched out all of what he had on his regular outside of his board-wide damage amplification, which was before Vigor, but now it's instead more specialized for magic attackers. He basically applies damage defense reduction on all enemies that makes them take more damage, 2.5 times more damage from magic damage attackers, which he already is magic, so it already works out on his favor. So he has that pretty niche form of damage amplification that no one else had outside of Soul with his short damage, I believe, which was already very situational. But this one you can actually make use of for potentially farming quests or something like that, where or quests where you want to bring a lot of magic range units all together. So that's pretty nice. That it's not as good as, well, personally I don't think it's as good as the board-wide Vigor, but it's a neat bonus. He also has Brawl on phase start, which is another damage amplification tool, and he also has 2 times damage amplification against enemies with paralysis, which he himself inflicts. Unfortunately, only at 80%, but he also applies a buff on turn start at 90% to allies left and right that gives them a chance, a 60% chance, to make them apply paralysis when they attack. So if you have him on a later slot, on like 3rd, 4th slot or something, even if he misses his paralysis, there's still a neat chance that your ally your other units could have inflicted paralysis on the target he missed, so he would still get damage amplification. All of this coupled together, it's around 13k damage or something like that if the paralysis hit, which is pretty nice, and it's pretty decent for column clearing, especially since almost everything is guaranteed except paralysis. He also has a lot of neat immunities. Well, some of them are neat, but yeah. He's immune to all the skill locking effects. He also removes a debuff to himself at 60% after attacking, so he can potentially remove all debuffs from himself when he attacks. And with the charm off, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get this to work. He's also immune to all these locking effects, so this means that he's probably going to be able to cleanse all his debuffs on his turn, which is pretty nice. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but he's also immune to charm. But he's also immune to all weapon changes, so no Summer Oz memes, even though you wouldn't want this anyway outside of the paralysis, because he loses damage with that because he doesn't get the defense modifier, the magic damage amplification that he already inflicts, so that's already a big damage reduction that he gets. He also gets Adamantine on phase start, and
you good, Herbie? You guys there?
I'm here.
Okay, thought you disconnected. Herbie, you just trailed off. The heck?
I think something probably just came up.
Okay. Where did he leave off? He was kind of talking about it in order.
Sorry, I was talking about this. But yeah,
God.
I was talking about the Adamantine that he bestows.
Yeah, please continue from there.
Yeah. So basically, he also has a defense modifier against slash ranged enemies, which you pretty much want. Which you pretty much aren't going to use unless you're using him on some neat high difficulty quest or something like that. You'll always want him in the front anyway, so it's a neat bonus. On his CS, he also applies weakness to hit units and also gets crit to himself and applies nullify debuff to allies, which is alright, I guess. But this is a lot of damage amplification, if you notice. He has Brawn, he has the 2.5 damage multiplier against magic, he also has the paralysis multiplier, and he also gets weakness and crit on his CS, which makes him a pretty potent magic damage. Unfortunately, his only method of gaining CP is by 80% turn start to drain enemies CP, 10 CP from every enemy, which is a shame because enemies don't usually start with a lot of CP, so you're not gonna get a lot out of this. But yeah, I think it's a pretty neat magic damage dealer that can also provide support to other magic damage dealers like Balor and Bichanvari and stuff like that. And he also doesn't need to move to apply this damage amplification. He also has Break, which I forgot to mention, because it's only after being hit, but yeah, it's alright. Yeah. I don't think you're ever going to play around the Break, so... But it is there, and it is 90%, and it is another form of increasing his damage. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this unit.
Okay.
I am very unprepared.
It's okay. I took plenty of notes on this, but before I continue mine, what do you guys think? Milk? Salkus? Guys.
Okay. I'll go.
The stream of people dying. Go ahead.
Yes, well, I can't tell if it's my internet sometimes, but anyway, yeah, I would agree that Yoritomo is one of the better units on the banner. He's just kind of generically useful just because he does a lot of damage, even on his own. Paralysis is, of course, a very powerful effect as usual. Even if he doesn't get a one-shot, he will have stunned them and made them do less damage, which is always good. And the magic global multiplier, not only can he benefit from it, but there's plenty of powerful magic attackers, at least when you consider the 5 stars. Disregard what I said earlier in the stream. When you talk about 5 stars, there's plenty of strong magic attackers to synergize with Yoritomo who would gladly take a free damage buff, like Valentine's below. Of course, he's the go-to. There's also V Kengo. But yeah, he has plenty of people to synergize with, and he's like... He feels like one of the only units on this banner who doesn't really have too much of a downside, besides the kind of poop rate on the allied paralysis, but that's kind of extra, honestly, because he can already do it on his own.
Alright.
Okay, I'll go now then. Yeah. His attack stat is surprisingly kind of low. So, when I compared Valentine Balor's numbers with him, he kind of like lost, even with like even if you don't take into Valentine Balor's like paralysis and dazzle advantage multipliers. They kind of reach the same level when you fully seed and blossom both. If you don't count Valentine Balor's dazzle and paralysis advantage multipliers. The thing though is that I think that magic weakness thing is probably the most interesting part about this kit. I haven't really thought of like what formation I would use it for though. Like 3 magic units, 4 magic wide units. I was thinking maybe like Sanat Kumara. I don't think I've heard his name show up in quite a bit, because Sanat Kumara is still like a magic DPS, but also has expanded horizontal movement. So yeah,
The only reason I
It's
never
kind of
mentioned
like-
Sonnet for magic damage dealers is because his stigma is like a shaky rate, isn't it? Or his crit, something like that.
It's just
his crit is like 50% or something.
Yeah, it's not
But
great.
yeah, and his stigma is like 80%. Yeah, I use him quite a bit actually. So yeah, but yeah, he's a good he's definitely a good unit. It's just that like some of his DPS role got shifted into that damage buffing role. I'm not really, and while I can see how the magic thing can be strong, I'm not like too like thrilled by it just because of how restrictive it is. I think you could run it in farming. It's just I don't see it currently just yet.
I see.
That's basically it. Oh, the other thing is that he basically makes paralysis super
Reliable.
easy, which is like kind of dumb. Like when it was like super rare beforehand. Like I had to like use Band Typhon CS for like easy paralysis. Now this guy just does it. So it's just like okay, sure. Or
I
like
mean, if only it was
fucking
90%,
Vopla.
right? But yeah.
Like Vopla, you have to move him so that you can get paralysis to 1 square. Sure. And now Yoritomo like does this. So whatever.
Honestly, that's probably the main reason why they didn't make it 90%. Because as important as it is for his damage amplification, paralysis by itself outside of that is still pretty strong.
Yeah, it's like so stupid. But yeah, for CQs, at least for like new people, at least for like hard CQs, this guy is probably going to be very good.
Okay. Well, my thoughts on this, I actually have the most notes on him, but the idea is, as Irby put it, you probably would want to use Vigor more than something like Magic Weakness. But there's one factor that Yoritomo's variant can offer over his base kit, which is the fact that Yoritomo in his base kit is not really a damage dealer himself. At the very least, you don't really want him to be attacking, or at the very least, he won't really function as an attacker. Whereas in this one, he can still give that damage amp as well as buff units, so he can perfectly function as someone contributing to wiping the board as well. And I think that's a pretty major difference because one kind of team setup that I've always thought of, and I tried to make work, but simply wasn't possible because of the lack of stronger units, was a wide map setup where you bring 4 magic units. And the reason why that's special is because at least if you can move them, like even just a regular 1 square away, you can guarantee to hit every single square on the board with 4 magic units on turn 1. No matter what random position you start, you just need to like ferry one of them or some shit if they're all as far apart as possible. And that wasn't really viable when I tried testing it out, just because the damage buffers on the entire board were kind of sparse, and when they were there, they were like Yoritomo, who couldn't really contribute to damage himself, especially not at magic range. But now Yoritomo himself can act as a magic range damage dealer, and he can also just up the ante and the damage values for other magic units. So for units that are sub 10k, they definitely will be helped by this, so that they can actually start clearing at magic damage, such as Halloween Police Toji and Girimekhala and Bigfoot and Takamaru 3. You can see the list on screen right now of just the damage values calculated for the magic units. But of course they'll also just dramatically amp up the ones who are also above 10k, such as Anvari and Horikami and Fancy Blore and Ballad of the Valentines can go. And they're all quite strong, and because Yoritomo doesn't need to move, he can take it. You can decide to move whichever one to get the maximum damage potential out of any one of them. And because it's a unique buff or debuff that he gives the entire enemy, it won't stack on anything else like Vigor normally would, such as with Horikami, who I believe his Hot Springs variant does actually have Vigor, I think, maybe. But yeah, so that's why the title of the stream is The End of Wide Maps. Because at least I thought it would make a wide map farming a lot more viable just by Yoritomo's existence. Unfortunately, he can't really equip any good booster ARs, but with him alone, he just makes magic, magic damage dealing over 10k a lot more open, not just to 5 stars, but also to these sub sub 10k 3 stars and 4 star units. So it's a nice sort of a feature to have, although again, Yoritomo would be the centerpiece of it. Still not flexible enough to just have any combination of 4 magic units, but Yoritomo is definitely a centerpiece that makes it a lot more viable in general. But yeah, his personal damage, if you're wondering, you can see up there is just 13k damage per square, which, as Milk said, it is weaker than below right now, which is at around 23k damage per square. But yeah, as for my thoughts on his charge as well as break, as Irby put it, he is not really going to be getting his charge very often because he can't really get CP very often on turn 1. But with that said, if there are like several survivors in the first turn of each battle, then he can dramatically get CP because he's not just getting the CP that you get for hitting each enemy, which is 5 CP every time a unit's hit, but also the CP they get for attacking. And that's for the entire board, so I'm sure he would dramatically get his CP up very quickly if if the phase goes on for longer than a single turn. And in those cases too, he can amp damage even more for when they decide to attack him, and he can inflict break. So yeah, he'd be good for wide map farming, but he'd also be good for cases where the wide map just might be a tad bit too strong for the entire team, and then he can just blow everything up with his regular damage as well as his charge and break. So yeah, those are my additional thoughts on Yoritomo. If there's no other remarks on that, then you can read up the comments, Irby.
There is no remarks.
Wow.
I didn't get him, so he doesn't exist.
Sad. Yeah, I kind of wanted to.
Where did we leave off again? Doesn't say that I'm trying to be strong.
Yep.
The anti-Fushi. I don't see it. Finally, P yellow kind of. Okay, of course. Honestly, everything else I like about him aside, I'm just happy I can replace Tajikaro with him in the wood support slot. The end of wide maps. About the only problem I have with Yori is that all the best magic attackers are event 5 stars. Yeah, pretty much. Just work over those stones for the 5-star high damage dealers magic attackers. There you go. There are still attack seeds, but his 3 and 5 star just miss most of the time. I'm not understanding this sentence, but okay.
Oh, his regular kit has that oppression advantage thing, and I think he also gets bigger himself. It's just that, you kind of want Yoritomo in the back so he can give limits so he doesn't generally even attack, even if he can do damage. Slash regular Yoritomo, that is.
What do attack seeds have to do with that, though? I don't get it. No, Onsen Horkyo only has nourishment and attack boost.
Yeah, I don't really use Horkyo Kami enough. Sorry for the misinformation. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
that's it.
Thank you for reading out the comments,
points.
Alright, well, it is time for you to take a break, and it's time for Zelgus to step up. So, we will now be talking about the last topic of this batch, which is going to be Jacob. Feel free to start whenever you're ready, Zelgus.
Oh boy, I hope I don't cut out for this. Right. So, Jacob is the other 5-star on the banner, and I definitely do not like him that much, but anyway. A quick one-sentence description I would say is he's an okay attacker whose most notable trait is just that he has a global debuff. So some of the boring stuff first. He has movement expansion when appearing. It's only usable for 1 turn, so it's nice for repositioning, and Jacob does actually have a reason to move, although there are ways to make him not need to move anyway, so I think the movement expansion is a bit reduced in value. He has Darkness Strengthening when appearing. This is a 1000 HP regen. This, in my opinion, is unbelievably useless. Besides the fact that Darkness itself is kind of rare, not too many units even have it, Jacob probably doesn't even want to have Darkness on him anyway, because he is actually capable of CSing quite fast. So this is just a theme skill, except it's shit. His vanilla version did it better because as a blind man he should be literally immune to darkness anyway. So the fact that he doesn't negate the penalties of darkness in his variant is kind of dumb. If they wanted it to actually be a strengthening effect, they should have made it at least negate the attack down. But at any rate, this skill's kind of worthless. Also, the heal doesn't benefit from healing up because it's a status, which is in Jacob's kit. So that's some cool anti-synergy. Or yeah, he has guts and concentration on face start. Those are always good, sure. Right. So on turn start, Jacob grants himself a unique or 1.2 times damage multiplier or damage buff. It stacks up to 3 times. So the buff multiplier will be 1.2 times, 1.44, 1.728 times. This is probably one of the worst implemented skills ever because it has a stupid uptime. So this buff lasts 4 turns, but the skill is on a clock of 3 turns. So this means the buff hasn't actually got full uptime on the max value, and instead the number of buffs each turn go like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, and then it starts from turn 1 again. So the buffs expire on the turn after it just tried to refresh, so yeah, it'll go like that. So really it's more like a bad 6-turn clock. So the skill ramps up and then down and then repeats, and there's no reason it should be like that. There's like, I don't know why it's made like that. We literally just had an event with a character who does the same buffs, except his rotation wasn't done. It was Simurg. He also gives a 1.2 times damage buff, stacking up to 3 times. Except the rotation actually works because the buff is a 3-turn duration, not 4. So the Simurg will constantly refresh it properly, not like Jacob, who keeps dropping it. So yeah, that's not cool. I don't know why it's implemented like that. Right. So let's talk about some of those other bits. So his most interesting part is probably that he has a phase start buff reversal to the entire board at a 90% rate, because of course. So buff reversal, to quickly go over what it does, if the enemy is holding a buff of any kind, well, a removable buff, then it will quarter the damage dealt by them and make them take 2.5 times more. So obviously a very powerful debuff, as we already know. There's a reason why, it's one of the reasons why Bale was so strong. So being able to effortlessly apply to the entire board basically shuts down any offense that the enemy might have. Because if they try and get any buffs, they'll basically they'll make the damage worse unless it's crit. So enemies need to have a buff to actually take advantage of it yourself for the defense drop. So it can be kind of harder to take advantage of it on the first turn, except not really, because there are a decent number of ways these days to give enemies buffs. So Jacob personally can do it in 2 ways. When he moves, he grants increased recovery to himself and allies one square around, and enemies in thrust range. So this is the only incentive for Jacob to actually move, to take advantage of his movement expansion. It lets him reliably trigger buff reversal, since it's a 100% rate, even at skill level 1 actually. He has 100% rate to apply heal strengthening. So yeah, this is the buff that doesn't actually synergize with his darkness strengthening. Heal strengthening only applies to skills, not buffs, so it will only heal 1k, so cool. Generally, I would say enemies don't have enough healing for the buff, for the 1.5 times extra healing buff to be dangerous on enemies anyway, so for all intents and purposes, this buff is basically, it doesn't benefit the enemy at all, so that's good at least. The other method that Jacob has for triggering buff reversal is after attacking he grants blessing to enemies in a slash and thrust range. This would be nice because it would let Jacob trigger buff reversal without moving, except it has a 30% rate. It's also after attacking, so it doesn't actually work for the first enemy Jacob hits, because it's after attacking, so it won't even be on there. So presumably they wanted to incentivize actually moving Jacob, but instead they ended up making this crap skill that feels like it's from Gen 1 Housamo, honestly. Like, Babylon applies Blessing at a 50% rate when attacking, so I don't know, this stupid Blessing skill just feels like hot trash. Let's see, he also has freeze when attacking. No, this is separate from the buff reversal stuff. He has freeze when attacking to hit enemies and enemies left and right of them. This is nice, it's when attacking, so damage he can actually take advantage of. It's more damage and it's a nice spread. A shame it's an 80% base rate, because that means it's skill seed bait because of his concentration, but it will also no longer be 100% rate if his concentration drops off, so that sucks too. And he has a 300 HP heal to allies in a 2 square diamond radius at 70% range. The heal's actually kind of shit because Jacob is thrust range, so really the maximum heal is 600, and he has a 70% rate on it, which is not great. Combined with his increased recovery status, it's at least a 450 or 900 HP heal, but that's still pretty mediocre. I don't know why the rate of it is so awful considering how low the heal ceiling is, but okay. The 2 square diamond radius is probably the only positive part of the skill. It's pretty big, but I don't think it's big enough to justify the rest of the skill being kind of bad or mediocre. And the last part of his kit is this weird CP management thing. When Jacob attacks, he reduces his CP by 50, and when he is hit, he increases his CP by 50. So if Jacob attacks normally, then he's all but guaranteed to drain his entire CP pool if he hits 2 units. But if he gets hit by 2 enemies and he gets his CS 90% of the time, because of course the positive part of it is skill seed bait, but at least he has concentration. So I don't know why they gave him this CP draining thing, because no other part of his kit interacts with this. It's just it kind of feels very random. He's not like Valentine's Below where his debuffs rely on his CP level, so this just seems like an unnecessary handicap to Jacob, because it basically says in an optimal environment where he's probably not going to be getting hit, you will never get his CP, or his CS rather. So yeah, it just seems like a big unnecessary handicap, which is probably a good way to summarize Jacob, honestly, but more on that later. So his CS is shot range and grants crit, freeze, and has a 2x multiplier versus freeze. So it's kind of sad that the freeze will be a poor level because it's based on his SA, but the 2x multiplier does at least make sure it essentially makes it a full power freeze no matter what. And this CS will scale doubly well with SA level because it has 2 statuses that increase in power, or I guess 4 times as well. And at level 1 it deals 74k without buff reversal, or 185.5k with it, so a decent thing. So let's talk a bit about his damage numbers. With 1 stack of his buff, as in his 1.2 times buff, concentration and freeze, he deals 13.608. Well, yeah, 13.6k. And if he adds buff reversal to that, he deals 34k damage. And if he has full stacks of his personal buff and all the rest, he deals 48.9k. So these damage numbers are kind of okay at best. There are other units who are also thrust range who can deal similar or more damage more easily than him. So here's a bad unit, Vanilla Kengo 5, or not bad unit, a okay unit. Vanilla Kengo 5 can deal 30k damage, and he can do that without moving, although it's not the most reliable. Volt 5 can deal 44.8k on turn 1, or 59k depending on if they have debuffs. And then there's of course Fashionista Wakan, who is notorious for his damage. He deals 67.8k if he crits, and 162.8k if his turn start weaknesses on enemies. And so those are just thrust units, and you know, they're poor attackers anyway, generally. I was only comparing them because Jacob's also thrust. If we compare other units, there's Valentine's Below, who deals 23.7k turn 1, and his range is significantly better than Jacob's. because magic range. And there's plenty of better attackers, Otahime, Babe, etc. But I think that's enough to illustrate that Jacob's attack power is just okay. So, anyway, to take advantage of his buff reversal, the absolute easiest way is to use the After School Workshop AR. This is the Crafter's AR available from Anvari's shop, the one with all the crafters. The AR applied Guts resistance on enemies when attacking, and it can be equipped by literally any unit, so it essentially turns Jacob's buff reversal into a free 2.5 times damage buff. Is when attacking, so of course it means the attacker can benefit from it, so it's literally the perfect AR, honestly. And it's also free. Well, it's free in the sense that you don't have to spend stones on it. And the Guts resistance is a 100% rate once maxed out, so literally the perfect combo. There are some other ARs which can trigger it, like the Astaroth Bale A Devilish Tea Time, which is 8% blessing in a 2-square diamond radius when unmoved, but they're not really as practical or reliable as the Crafter's AR, so, and they're also not free. Yeah. So that's pretty much the best AR for Jacob, probably, or anyone you're using with him. As for units who can assist him, there's Licho and Vapula who can inflict weapon change. There's Perun who can inflict nourishment to the board. There's also Brong, he can also inflict Guts resistance. And there's some other units like Babylon, etc., etc., but I think those are some of the more notable ones.
Did he say Licho and
besides,
Vapula?
Yeah.
Or weapon change?
Yeah, weapon change, blood, and all to trigger buff reversal.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Well, how do you think I'll talk about nourishment?
Sorry, go ahead. I got confused.
Yeah, and some other ARs that Jacob might equip are Shooting Stars and Grapple with Destiny for evasion, piercing, and defense piercing. Might as well take advantage of this thrust status. Yeah, so to conclude, yeah, like I said, Jacob is a okay attacker whose main benefit is his board-wide buff reversal. His personal damage is alright, but his kit itself feels a bit like a mess that barely works together, and it feels a bit incohesive. The CP part has nothing to do with anything in his kit. The attack buff clock doesn't work correctly, or at least is designed terribly, and his personal use of buff reversal is kind of bad. You either move for like just a 2.5 times attack buff when you could be bringing like Lianan TM for a far greater attack buff, since if he moves he's only going to be debuffing those two units anyway. Or you fish for a terrible 30% rate from his blessing that doesn't even work with the front enemy. So yeah, a lot of parts of his kit don't feel like they work very well, or they don't have very good incentive to use them. And the buff reversal, is at least salvaged by the fact that the Crafter's AR exists, and it basically makes it so that literally any unit can benefit from Jacob's resistance, since anyone can equip it. Yeah, so overall, Jacob's pretty disappointing for me, which is a shame because I like it a lot. Aside from his global debuff, his playstyle otherwise feels like it's more like two different kits mashed into one, so yeah, that's it. Hello.
You want me to say something?
Ara's gone. We lost him forever.
Oh no.
Oh, sorry. No. I thought you were replying to me, but I was just muted. No, sorry. Exactly. Go ahead. Milk. Irby, say something if you want. My bad.
Okay, I'll go first this time. I actually have a little slightly more positive impression of him. Mainly, but I don't really know how it would work just because I don't have him myself. Mainly because I want to see like how good I can work both the Friesen if I had him myself and the buff reversal as well. Because that's like sources of damage that might be good in like farming. So I'm kind of like I kind of like hesitant to just write him off, but because maybe he might be good in farming later, just because you can maybe get the freeze and buff reversal off. You definitely have to like seed him or give him glint in combination with the concentration, but
I mean, it's just seeding him is fine, and the freeze will be guaranteed, which is nice from there. I do think it's bizarre that they made buff reversal 90%, even though that will like never fail because concentration is directly before it. Well, I guess it has a 1% chance of failing if concentration fails, but it is bizarre.
No, I think they're on the same timing, so it can still fail.
Really? I always thought that it was in like an order. It only like bundled it together if they were.
No, skill order doesn't affect like trigger calculation for procs.
Did we go through this with Hombre Tigre?
Yeah.
Did you? I'm not sure. I know it was confirmed that they were on the same timer if they were like literally as part of the same skill bundle, but in this case they're kind of separated from each other in completely different skills.
I actually forgot to test this. It was something I was going to test, but I forgot about it in all my C thing about how much I hate this kit.
Well, you'll have plenty of time to test it, since you will be begrudgingly using this kit anyway, since you like him. Sorry, you can continue.
But yeah, I like a CS actually. It's kind of fun. I think the CP train is actually kind of a useful thing if it was on like somebody else, and it was somebody who could be used with like Summer Oz. Well, I mainly want it on like Fashion Wakam.
Summer Oz Stalgus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because the CP train is helpful there. Yeah, so that you don't have to run that stupid Fruit Elite AR, which I don't have on Summer Oz. But yeah, it would have been nice if this minus 50 CP was on like Fashion Wakon or something, so you don't have to worry about that stupid CS.
Yeah, it is bizarre.
But yeah, if you do get that like after being hit CP on Jacob, it's actually pretty fun. But you need to be like in some like challenge quests to ever like see that happen. So not a farming thing. But yeah, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about how well you can use Jacob with this freeze and buff reversal. So that's mainly what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Herbie?
I think that no one will ever use Jacob after this event, ever. I'm not that optimistic about it. It's a thrust unit. I mean, sure, people can use it with some laws and eventually find something but to work with him, but I don't see anyone doing that. I don't see this being more used than the usual Summer Oz, Fashion Wakon, or whatever. So I don't see any utility in any particularly good and unique utility in his kit, other than the buff reversal. Even buff reversal itself is, even though it's unique, it's rare. No, it's not unique, but all enemies, yeah, that's pretty unique. It's still not good enough because it's missing the buffs. And you're going to need to apply them somehow. And his blessing sucks, even if you use Smoky God with him. But yeah, I don't see any redeeming qualities here, to be honest. I think this banner itself was specifically made just so they could make the kits were specifically made bad, so they could give him skill evolutions later.
That's harsh.
That's the only explanation I have to these units.
Well, I kind of like Milk's perspective on it. Well, maybe. In terms of they're more designed for challenge quests than they are for being reliable grind units.
Even for challenge quests, the only defense he has is like the buff reversal, which is only going to trigger on the thrust range of enemies and his guts. So it's not going to last very long. So unless you're using him with upper defensive units, but then what's the point at that point? you're already using a hyper defensive team.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
That's pretty much what I think.
Well, that was depressing to hear from all of you guys. Not that I disagree, but, you know, he is Ozable. You just need to give him the Guts Resistance AR. And in that case, he does pretty much the same amount of damage amp as any other, you know, Oz'd unit, since he has Concentration and Freeze and an activated buff reversal. And, because he actually relies on Freeze, I'm surprised no one mentioned it, but you can bring Gangstar Bertra along as well for that Freeze advantage, or, you know, Freeze weakness to the entire board. So you can bring, you know, Oz and Jacob and, what's it called, Bertro on the opposite side of the board to deal decent all-range damage on everyone. Besides that one specific board wipe usage, I guess Jacob's standalone usage isn't very great. He really does rely on, like, an AR plus, like, 2 other units to get something interesting going. But, you know, it's at least it's something better than some units which, no matter what combination of units you bring, they won't really function to do anything relevant. So yeah, I see that as a relevant use, honestly. Just those units, Oz, Guts Resistance AR, and Bertra. That's pretty much all my thoughts. You guys really have no remarks on anything I say, don't you? Come on, guys. Throw me a bone, jeez.
I don't have
Go-
I
go-
don't
go-
have Bertro, so I don't really care about Xmas Bertro at the moment.
You know, I'm so polite letting you guys say your thoughts first, and then I add on them to show interest. And then I say my thing, and it's like, radio sense. Come on, guys.
There's nothing interesting in this banner, though.
Ryota was pretty interesting
it's
for
fair.
wide map clearing, and, you know, I know it's not Ozable, but he does have some impressive damage with paralysis. I know it's nothing groundbreaking. I agree with you in the level that there's nothing new introduced, really, except for maybe the magic weakness, which is conditionally useful. But yeah, I like Milk's optimism in terms of what's called. In practice, they seem to be better than what the kit says. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. If that's it for Jacob, you feel free to read the comments. That's how it goes.
We're not getting very many comments this stream, are we? Let's see.
Because Fushi.
Yeah, because Fushi loves his siblings while Yoritomo is scared of his. Ah, right. You're talking about the anti-Fushi or something like that.
Yeah.
Happy Jacob, why do you avoid me? I mean, is it that big a loss? I can only say that because I have him, but I also don't like him. His kit, rather. He too is out of my reach. Very sad. I just can't see any reason to use him over Bale for buff reversal, and if you want to spread freeze, the only thing he has over Yoshito is the ability to hit 2 and 3 /freeze rows at once. I mean, I guess it's because Bale can't really do personal damage, unlike Jacob, who can deal decent personal damage. But Bale's more for team support with his buff reversal, attack up, and weakness. But also Bale can't actually trigger his own buff reversal, unless, you know, he has the Guts AR, which is a catch-all for anyone with buff reversal. And I guess Yoshito, I mean, he can attack just fine if he weapon changes into shot. Although I don't remember if that is mutually exclusive with freeze or not. Who gave the blind guy a gun or arm cannon? It's fine, he can see their souls or something. I don't know. I don't remember.
His hand wave is usually, I am blind, but I see the light of your soul. You know, it's literally, they never explain it beyond that. It's funny.
I mean, that's pretty standard for blind characters in anime and media and all that. Copium for me, Arafin left hanging. Yeah. When will I appear in Ara's stream? Sad face, water gun. Love you too. Yoshito shot and freeze are exclusive. Oh, okay. So, yeah, in that case, yeah, Jacob can attack and take advantage of his own freeze on the same turn. Same with his buff reversal, and the other two can't. So he's an attacker, while Yoshito and Bale are kind of more limited in that. Assuming they're not, like, turbo stacking buffs for Bale.
Don't you have
So,
Gangster
yeah.
Beartro?
I do, yes. I just forgot about it because I was seething.
Seedless Bertro's here to comfort you. Alright. I guess that's it for this topic then. This entire discussion, that is. So we'll just move on to our final thoughts on the matter. So, even though I've pretty much already heard side remarks on it, what are your thoughts on this event and the kits as a whole and just everything adjacent to this event?
Result Jason, result false.
Yes, that is the only correct response.
More like a corrupted response.
I don't know. I don't really like the banner, which is a shame because I do like Jacob. But I feel like the kit's kind of poop, and otherwise the event is kind of whatever for me.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had a banner this bad for a very long time, to be honest. But
I
that's
can...
just-
Wait, didn't you dislike the Chapter 13 banner or some shit like that?
Oh, right. The prologue banners. Yeah, they were pretty bad.
It wasn't that far.
But I was mostly talking about event banners. They
Oh yeah, for
they
sure.
were mostly okay.
Event banners,
but
they have been
this
sometimes at worst they are boring, but you know they were never outright disappointing. They're just boring at most, but still strong. I think the weakest we got before this was maybe Kabukicho Night Festival, but even then, Sandayu was kind of a hit before his nerf.
I think
Yeah.
this event is even more disappointing coming off of the heels off of Valentine's Fantasy, which everyone on that was good, I think.
And still is
yeah,
good.
it kind of like feels like last Valentine's the banner was 10 times better than this banner. Why?
Yeah, I was just talking with Milk before you both entered that I felt like the fantasy reprint was more enjoyable than this current event. Because there's just like more content even during that reprint, and the music was better, and there was an actual story trade. Whereas in this one, it's like the theme's a bit milquetoast. It's just like snow in February in Valentine's, and then the music is, let's be honest, it's a bit grating after a while. And
I love this Christmas event.
yeah,
This Christmas event.
it does feel like a Christmas event, doesn't it? And then the kits just are the coup de grace that really doesn't make it seem that amazing. And even the new unit, at least he's cute and the voice acting is nice, but his kit itself isn't anything to write home about.
Well, for this event, I think, to me, the problem about this event is more so that I don't think like many people really care about the characters. I mean, like, I like Shinya, but I think that's like kind of like a weird thing to have, even though
I disagree. I think it's weird too, but for some reason I see a lot of people like Shinya. It's very strange. It's just like a lot of shadow Shinya fans hiding in there.
Yeah, it's just like, I think I kind of like him in the sense that he's like kind of like the most normal looking person in Housamo. But yeah.
You're so normal for
yeah, like going back to that, I feel like this banner isn't like really like baity in a sense. Like, yeah, it's like Yoritomo and Jacob, but I think like all the furries are just kind of sleeping because it's like Tanetomo, and like Giri's fine, but he's like an elephant, so he doesn't appeal to.
He's not technically a furry.
You know, those guys that are like, they're like salivating over the flavor of the month wolf and stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, I guess like we also haven't had like a really like, you know, solid new human design from Life Wonders. You have to go look at like the other games like Eidos or Crave Saga for humans nowadays. So we're just running off like Jacob and Yoritomo for very.
We're reaching the bottom of the barrel of human designs right now. We're just reaching out to Shinya.
And in terms of side features, like, you know, they haven't really stood out, these characters so far. I mean, Tanetomo and Yoritomo have always been a 2-bit act in main quest, and even then there was very kind of sterile their interactions about, you know, yes my liege, and then Yoritomo just does some planning with Claudin, and that's pretty much it, and he doesn't really show up for any other events. And Jacob also is kind of an enigma in terms of he shows up in chapter 10 and then just like says, I followed your light, and then he disappears after that chapter. He helps randomly. So, and then there's like, who was the other unit? I already forgot the units in this banner.
I mean, Shinya?
Yeah, Shinya. He appeared very briefly in the main quest. But I guess Shinya is the only one that makes sense people would like, because he has been fairly relevant in a lot of quests, and as a side character was the gang of him and Taramighty and Kalki. I don't know why they always show up and everything, but they're funny.
Yeah, so basically I think like the overall interest in the characters is just pretty low. I mean, I like the characters actually. Like I think they're fun to read about. But yeah, it's not really like a baity event. Like we just need something like a new Gomtang unit or whatever.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's not really baity for me.
Or at least for like
sorry, go ahead.
Or at least for the furries, like some like new like flavor of the month basic design that's not like the new semester units. Yeah.
Yeah,
those are all the new semester units. All the furry bait this coming in semester.
Yeah, speaking of which, that's like, you know, accelerating this feeling of pointlessness to pull on this banner, because new semester is just around the corner, right? Between these really like less than average kits and not really horny or baity designs and just you know, kind of uninteresting everything. And then the, you know, a lot of people units that people already know their designs, which are pretty hot. I hear people really like Caster, for example, coming out for new semester, presumably. There's just like very little reason
to fuck Caster and Pazuzu.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, though, if you're like somebody who likes human designs, even like the new semester people are like not really that appealing. Like, who do you have? Like Beowulf and Yuma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
I guess this banner is just to tide them over for now then, since they won't be won't be eating good for a while. But yeah, if it weren't for Girimekhala, like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're like somebody like Irby, you're like targeted like last year pretty heavily with like Kresnik, Sandayu variant, and like Yorm, maybe Heracles if you're like a Sosuke fan.
Well, it's kind
and then like this year, like after Yoritomo and Jacob, like what are you supposed to roll for? So I don't know.
Well, I'm rolling for Taishaku 10, but that's not gonna happen anytime soon, I imagine.
Yeah, or you have like Copium.
But that's the only one, really. I'm looking for.
Yeah,
So,
it's either that or like Faroon variant, Copium for Fkari 2. I don't know what to do.
You're Dagger variant.
it's over. To be honest, honestly, all those furry bait designs, they're probably not even going to be all in this semester, and they're going to be split on the chapter 14 banner. Most likely.
Yeah, they like
probably
have some cancellation. Like Isaac was supposed to like not be in the banner or something, or whatever. I forgot.
I don't remember either, but I doubt that's going to be those units that were like on chapter 14 are going to be the entire new semester. There's probably going to be something else in there. Copium.
Yeah, it's either way I'm looking forward to it, because new semester has always been a strong contender. It was a bit weak last year, but you know, it was still one of the more interesting banners of the entire year. Like maybe a third place compared to something like Summer Pool Twilight and maybe one other banner. But it generally never disappoints, and so I'm gonna be looking forward to that, unlike this one, which I pulled 5 tickets for just because of Girimekhala's design and not even his kit. If he weren't even in this banner and there was someone else, I probably would have pulled that 3 tickets at most just for the bonus, and that was it. And I don't feel any regret for not getting anyone, because yeah, this as a whole, this event hasn't been great personally for me. So this is exactly the new semester waiting room.
It also doesn't help that the game is bugged. Like I haven't been logging in frequently, but I actually wanted to farm this event, but can't, and because I keep getting that stupid error at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb how much you have to press
reload.
it. One time I was pressing it for 2 hours and nothing happened. It was so stupid.
You you pressed it for 2 hours?
I mean, yeah, I was like playing something else,
That's
but
unusual.
just like tapping it on the side while it was happening.
I reached my limit at 10 minutes, and then I just turned it off.
And then you did 2 times damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're honestly gonna need a full compensation for all the missed stamina. Technically, we're not missing stamina, but
Yeah.
it's not like everyone reads a tweet, right? Some people will just assume that, like, you know, the game's not working or something, and not play for that long. Pretty bizarre.
They're gonna give us 50 stamina minor drinks.
No.
But I already have But I already had hundreds of
course.
drinks.
I mean, that's the only way to give an exact amount of stamina, which is a bit dumb. Whatever. Anyway, I'll just read up the comments, you know. We are approaching the 2-hour mark, so let's keep it short if we can. Yoshito can take advantage of his own freeze. He gets combo and slash change on this. I vaguely remember how Yoshito works, but that doesn't mean all the reason, because he's a bit too big brain for me just for an okay use. Better literally just a bait to waste snows for new semester. Yep, just as we discussed. Also, Jesus, Suspenders only saved from being garbage by Yoritomo. Yeah, I was surprised by a lot of you when you said Yoritomo was one of the strongest ones. I was like, who's he contending against? He is the strongest one in the banner, really. Like, by a large margin. Not that what's called Yoritomo is, you know, super amazing. That changes the game, but
We were
he's
just
definitely
being
much stronger than
nice.
everyone else.
Please.
Hey, I can be nice
copium.
too, but come on. But by a large margin, the second place is pretty far away. But yeah, Yoritomo is pretty strong. I like the fact, I like his kit a lot, and I probably might pull from him again if he reprints when I have more resources. But right now, definitely not, because I'm 2 for you resources, and I need sleep for new semester. Elephant Boy is all I need. I'll probably get him during the anniversary since he's permanent. I like Shinya, a lot of people do. I like Tanetomo, but I'm not really a fan of anyone else here. Oh, that's pretty opposite to most people, but yeah, Tanetomo does have quite the following. Well, Hakenshi following, really. Chubby Elephant Boy. I mean, I like Chubby, but I would more accurately describe him as stocky, and I like stocky too. The average furry lovers. Yuma is cute. I don't even remember who Yuma is. Is that the guild master or something?
He's the guy in the cage who transformed into a furry.
Yeah, that guy. The guy with the weird line art. Can't believe I'm the only Kershaw fan. Oh yeah, he exists. No, there's a lot of Kershaw fans. I just have weird vibes from him because he kind of looks like Chad Sus, and I don't really like Sus, so. There's more. I'm not summoning for freeze. I just want the entertainers unit, so yeah. 2 hours, yeah, we're approaching there. Great stream. Thank you. Yeah, so we are done streaming.
Wait.
What's up?
Wait, before that, I've been re-rolling Jacob's buff reversal for the last 20 minutes now, and he hasn't failed it a single time, so...
Hey, what I
it
say,
might be-
the order does matter in that case. It only, rolls
it
together
might
if they're
be
bundled.
actually 100%, in which case it's kind of dumb that it's 90%. Or else I'm just failing a 90% repeatedly, which is also possible, but...
Yeah, well,
Is yours seeded?
No, I haven't seeded Jacob because I don't have the other Jacob 5, and at this point, this 5-star of his is so disappointing that I might not.
I mean, let's be real. This Jacob is, even if he's not as great as you were hoping, he's still a lot better than base 5-star Jacob.
I mean, yeah,
they're
but
like different
he
roles.
also doesn't appeal to me personally in this game. Oh yeah, this is another thing. I don't really care about the designs for this banners. Everyone in the military.
You're not a
Yeah,
fan of
it's,
camo parkas?
Really ugly.
No, I'm not.
It is bizarre
Really
design, but
ugly.
I guess the camo makes sense
The colors
because
would be neat.
Tanetomo and Yoritomo.
Like Jacob had a personal appeal to me for degenerate reasons, and now he's kind of like
Far removed from his original theme.
that, and also I just think it's kind of boring and like even the onsen, the obligatory onsen skin is kind of like okay.
Yeah.
Like the weird pose.
Yeah,
The
like,
poses. Oh right, I forgot to say. I hate the poses of all these variants. They're all terrible. I hate them.
no, they have to be
They're not
posed
like-
like they're holding their guns in the parts of their.
This stream is really depressing, but I honestly won't stop with these guys because I feel the same way. No, well, let's hope for Evos next year or some shit, but honestly, this art can't improve at this point, so we'll just have to make do. Anyway,
This could be thrown in the bin with Sunshine Christmas.
Yeah, that was like the last. Wait, that's not even. This isn't even a Christmas event. You keep on making me think it's Christmas event. It's not. It's Valentine's.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about a summer event.
Okay, you're confusing.
Yeah, Sunshine Christmas is the summer event, and this Valentine's Christmas is the Christmas event.
Okay, a bit too innovative for me. If that's it, then I'll conclude the stream. Oops. So, on 3, everyone, let's say our goodbyes and peace out. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye.